Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, empowering men and masculinity in the anti-male age. I'm your host, Brian Krull, and today I'm going to be mansplaining to you about power and control. But first, just hit that like button for me. Thanks. Now, I wanted to talk about power and control because, you see, men, most of them at least, namely those without low testosterone, crave power and control. And many of us men deserve it, much more than women. Of course, we know that men generally have more dominant personalities, again, due to the testosterone, and we have more leadership qualities due to that, paired with our being more rational-minded than women, and due to our tendency to want to help others, even self-sacrificingly. Women, however, make terrible leaders because of their selfish and even narcissistic nature, paired with their erratic and even volatile nature. So, men are more deserving of being in control, and yet women, being the keen emotional and social manipulators that they are, have taken control from us. On the macrocosmic scale, they've turned the patriarchy into a matriarchy while brainwashing us into the illusion that we're still living in a patriarchy. And in the microcosmic scale, when one man marries a woman, he's basically giving up control to her. Even in the BDSM community, in relationships between a male dominant and a female submissive, the female submissive is really the one who has the control and power in the relationship. She only gives it to the dominant in theatric play, temporarily, whenever she wants to, and in the ways she wants to. So again, she's really the one with the control in the relationship. And again, just like feminists did with maintaining the idea that we are in the patriarchy while they have actually changed it to a matriarchy, women in marriages take control from the man through manipulation and trickery, and will make him think that he's retaining control when in actuality she has it now. And why does she have to do this through manipulation and trickery? Well, because the man doesn't consent to this surrender of control consciously. But over time, they do feel it, at least subconsciously. Many of them are in denial and will repress the feelings of disempowerment deep into their subconscious. And what happens is they develop what is called a Napoleon Complex or an inferiority complex from it. This is where these men will act more macho, pretending that the relationship is perfect, that their wife is a queen who treats them like a king. She definitely has not cut his balls off. He is an alpha male who is in total control of his relationship. These men will act like they are an exemplary man for having gotten this girl to marry them, and that it only makes them more of a man to be married to her. Certainly more of a man than any of you bachelors out there. You probably see posts of these couples on social media making themselves look all picture perfect, but that is actually all just fake narcissistic overcompensation for the fact that their relationship is just like everyone else's. One in which the male has signed over his life to the woman, and she does have him by the balls. And though she is like a queen, he is like a slave, not a king, and can't do anything without her permission. You can invite him out, but he will have to check with his wife, and the answer will probably be no, because she makes his schedule and already has plans for him. Or if he can come out, it's just going to be to check in. He won't be able to stay too long or drink or smoke with you or eat too much because she is watching his health. So, though the signs are all there that he has lost his freedom and sovereignty and agency and has given up all control of his life over to his wife, he will never admit it, because the woman and the Institute of Marriage have created a facade for the man to live in where he gets to pretend that he is the patriarch of a family and his wife is empowering him in his masculinity. How? I don't know. I guess they feel that the thrill of getting laid once in a while and the validation of getting to say that a woman wanted him enough to marry him can be very brainwashing for someone with an inferiority complex. But it isn't just that alone that brainwashes someone who claims to be a dominant male into such slave-like submission. It is also the illusion that living in a domestic marriage creates. And in order to help you understand this illusion and what it does to a man's mind, I want to talk to you more about where this idea of the Napoleon Complex comes from. You see, when Napoleon was finally overthrown, They didn't want to kill him, and they also didn't want to imprison him. What they wanted was for him to be out of the country altogether, but they also didn't want him to be able to go into another country, right, where he could just rise to power again. What they wanted was for him to be contained and controlled somewhere that was not their country or any other country. So he was exiled to an island where a tiny mock kingdom was created for him to live in. This was meant not only to give him a place where he could live completely contained to this one complex, but it also was humiliating to him. They gave him a tiny replica of the royal life with little tastes of things that he would miss, but everything was so much less. He was living in a tiny little place with something like a single musician and a single servant and a single cook. It was this small, satirically glorified cell on an island. Living there for an extended period of time must have been maddening. And not just because of the atmosphere they created, but because of the narcissistic collapse Napoleon would have been going through the entire time, realizing his failure and how far he had fallen. Or perhaps there was an internal battle where part of him wanted to go along with it and, like a child, imagine that he was still a king in this tiny castle and not wanting to face his failure, while the other side did feel like a complete failure and felt completely humiliated and demoralized to be in this childish castle they had created as his cell. And that is exactly what the domestic married life is for a man. It is all an illusion made to make him feel like he is an honorary king in this tiny castle, when in reality, the title is meaningless, and he is actually just a slave who's given up his life to this woman and is living in a prison that he has been brainwashed into blindness to. It is only when his usefulness is gone, that his sentence is over, and it all comes crashing down, that his eyes will finally become opened. When he gets it all taken away from him, and he gets kicked out into the real world, he will finally be able to look back upon it objectively for what it was. And unfortunately, that narcissistic collapse that it causes is extremely depressing. The feeling of your entire reality and sense of identity and self-esteem are completely destroyed. To realize that you are not, in fact, some sort of king or patriarch, but that you are just a nobody whose wife doesn't want you anymore, and worse, has taken everything from you and kicked you out into the cold, dark, harsh world to fend for yourself alone with less resources than before, is extremely difficult, both emotionally and otherwise. It makes you lose all sense of self-worth. It robs you of your dignity, and it also takes away your optimism. When you get divorced, you lose the person who you loved and thought was your life partner and was going to be there for you when you needed them until the end, and you lose your home, your kids if you have them, and you can lose part of yourself too. The part of yourself that you thought of as a husband, a lover, a family man, and a head of household if you had one, a patriarch, in other words. Men sign up for marriage because that is what they want to be. But marriage for women is just something that leads to divorce and them taking these things from you. That is the sacrifice men make in a marriage, and it is not what they think they are signing up for, but they are, because they've been tricked by the woman who take their control away from them and put blinders on them and start leading them around like a blind dog. This is what happens when a man gives up control to a woman, because the matriarchy is not phallocentric. It is not in place for women to take care of men. It is in place to give women dominance over men so that the women can take from men and be provided for on her terms, taking whatever she wants from men instead of just what he wants to give her. The patriarchy, however, was gynocentric. It gave men control, but at least it provided for women. And what's worse is that women don't even know how to use the control that they take from men. As I said earlier, they are terrible leaders. Not only do they have no leadership qualities and abilities, but they also don't enjoy leadership roles, which is why they end up getting divorced. Paradoxically, after they take away a man's power and control, they lose attraction for him, and thus can only tolerate his presence until his resources are all used up. And in the meantime, they do not know how to use the power and control they've taken from him, and don't like having to be in that position because women aren't wired for it. They simply are not mentally made to be in positions of power and control. So empowering women only corrupts them. Men are made to be the ones in power and control. We are the ones who built this world. We built these countries and civilizations. We built these governments. We built these cities. We built these homes. Women only live in them. So we are the ones who are supposed to be in control. So never give up your control to a woman. Don't allow her to seduce you with her sexuality into that illusion of domestic married life. It is nothing but a trap. Maintain your power and control and put any woman who tries to seduce and manipulate you back into her place. That concludes this video. Thanks for listening. I hope I mansplained that good enough for you guys. If I did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and check out the links below for more resources for your masculine self-development. And if you can afford to donate, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support funds me doing this work and fighting the good fight for men like you. And you can stay tuned for the next video coming out soon, which will be on male versus female aging. And otherwise, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.